as the Dukes coming off a 31-24 win against the Tribe of William and Mary at home this past Saturday. That was the 39th meeting in the series. The Dukes have won 22 of those now, and the last 5 games in that series have been won by the home team, and the Dukes have won 5 consecutive at Bridgeport Stadium. You have to go back to the national championship year was the last time William and Mary managed to leave Harrisonburg with a victory. So the Dukes have now won 10 out of 13 in that particular series, and Coach Houston will talk a little bit more certainly about that ball game. Dukes remain number 7 in the Stats FCS poll and at number 6 on the coaches poll. Nobody in front of the Dukes lost this week, so no movement there. The top, as we're now past the midpoint of the season, start looking at maybe some of those other teams around the Dukes. North Dakota State still remains number 1. Sam Houston State, that is number 2. Jacksonville State, number 3. Eastern Washington, number 4. Chattanooga is 5. Then Richmond still holds that 6th spot. JMU at number 7. And then the Citadel coach is number 8. He knows a few folks there, I think. Interestingly, this week, Chattanooga and the Citadel play one another, so there might be a little movement on the poll this week, but Coach, he and I talked last night. He's not really worried where the Dukes are right now. That's more for the fans. The other in the national polls, number 13, Villanova, from the CAA, I should add. Villanova, number 13. UAlbany is number 17. New Hampshire is number 25 on the coaches poll and receiving votes on the Stats FCS poll. The New Hampshire Wildcats are off to a 4-2 record right now. They're one of 4 teams unbeaten in league play, one of 3 at 3-0, and they have wins against William and Mary, Elon, and Rhode Island, and that's who the Dukes will face in Durham, New Hampshire this weekend. A couple of other notes. The combined record of the foes for New Hampshire at this point of the season is 9-19. The combined record for foes JMU has faced at this point is 7-15. Of course, 5 of those losses were hung on the opponents by the Dukes, and that's excluding North Carolina. The combined record of future foes for the Dukes is going to get a little tougher at 17-13. So you can see how things may move there. National rankings, JMU in several categories. They're second nationally in rushing offense, nearly 340 yards per game. Third in third down conversions, number 2 as well at 55%. First downs, 168. Also ranking 4th in total offense at 528 per ball game, and 5th in scoring at 44.8. Khalid Abdullah is second in FCS in rushing yards, 797, and rushing touchdowns at 11. He's actually number 10 among active rushers in the country career-wise with his 2,666. So Khalid number 10, and this past week he just moved up to number 6 on JMU's all-time charts. He got past Maurice Fenner that played on the 2004 National Championship team, and Kenny Sims. Kenny played on the team that beat Delaware in overtime. He scored the touchdown back in the early 90s in the FCS playoffs, then known as the 1AA playoffs. So he did get past Maurice and Kenny, and he only needs 29 yards to get Alvin Banks for 4th all-time. Again, a few names from the past. Khalid's career total is 10 among active players, as I said, and he's 9th in rushing touchdowns among active players in FCS. Looking at this week's game a little bit more, Saturday is the 16th meeting between the Dukes and the Wildcats in football. This series, Wildcats lead at 8-7. It split 6-6 when they're conference opponents. The last 2 meetings were in Durham, New Hampshire, but they did not play in each of the last 3 years. You have to go back to 2013, and that was a 3rd straight victory for Sean McDonald's team. UNH is particularly strong at home. I'm sure I don't need to let Coach Houston know this, but if you go back to 2007, they are 49-6 when playing at home, going back to 2007. So the Dukes will have their hands full there. The JMU Sprint Broadcast Network will have the coverage beginning at 11 a.m. Yours truly and Dave Thomas there will be in Durham. That is accessible online through Madison HD Sportsnet Audio, presented by the JMU Alumni Association, also through WSVA Online and TuneIn Radio also, and televised this week by the American Sports Network. All right, let's bring up the head coach of the 5-1 and 3-0 Dukes of James Madison, Mike Houston.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here today, and thanks again to O'Neill's for hosting our luncheon. Coming off a really special weekend this past weekend for our program against a longtime rival, William & Mary. It was a great ball game. I'll tell you, the first thing I want to do is I want to thank our fans and alumni. We had over 20,000 in attendance last Saturday in Bridgeforth Stadium in spite the inclement weather. And I think, they were not only there, but they were very loud and vocal and enthusiastic with their support, and certainly made a difference in the ball game. But, just reminded us, once again of what a special thing we have here at JMU with our support from our fan base. So, but it was a great game between two teams. They've had a lot of great games. As I said last week, the all-time scoring differential between the two teams in this series coming into Saturday was 1 point all-time in 38 meetings. So the 39th meeting was much the same. A very tight contest. I thought William & Mary had a great game plan. I thought they executed it very well. I thought our kids were ready to play. I thought that we really played hard. We played physical. I thought the kids did a great job of handling a lot of the adversity that William & Mary put in front of us. Especially going in at the half 10-10. We talked about a strong start to the second half. Thought we able to do that and kind of take control of the game there at the beginning of the third quarter, which I thought was important. And then there at the end, making some big plays to seal the victory and hold on to get the win. Just really excited for the kids. And I think I said Saturday night, probably for me the greatest memory of this past weekend, the win, was after Taylor Reynolds' interception in the end of the end zone, just watching our kids celebrate down there, just with a lot of the heartache that they had in the locker room a year ago, and I've heard them talk about that as probably the low point of last season. To see them able to celebrate a play like that at the end of the William & Mary game there at home, it was really a special moment for them, and I was really excited to see it. So, great weekend. You look up and, they don't get any easier. So, we've got a pretty big challenge in front of us this weekend going to New Hampshire. Coach McDonald has done a tremendous job up there, 12 straight playoff appearances, longest streak in the country. As Kurt said, 49-6 in the last 55 home games, including they've won 17 in a row at home, tied with us atop the conference, along with Villanova right now at 3-0 in league play. They're a very, very good football team, a very experienced football team, a tremendous winning tradition, a coach that has been there for a long time and has consistently won year in and year out, and certainly has his program established. We've got a great task going up there. And looking at them, they're sound, physical, just very, very disciplined, good defensive football team. Offensively, they are a lot of the same on offense. A very sound, fundamental offensive football team. Played very, very hard. Very good running football team. Their quarterback is a great runner. Their senior tailback, who's had a great career there, second team All-CAA last year, is having another great year this year. And so certainly, I think we will have to play our best game of the year this Saturday in order to have a chance to win. And I think that if we were to somehow be able to pull off a victory up there, it would certainly be a significant win for not only this year's team, but for our football program. I think it's been a decade or more since JMU has beaten New Hampshire up there at New Hampshire. So, but our team is very, very excited for this game. I think that they will respond to the challenge, and I expect us to have a great week of practice, and I expect us to go up there and be ready to play and to play well. So, all that being said, questions about last week's game with William & Mary or this week's matchup against New Hampshire?
Greg Medea, DNR. Yesterday on the teleconference, you had mentioned that New Hampshire is very much like Oregon in terms of offense, and just because of Chip Kelly and that whole deal. What makes it so tough to prepare for with all the motion and multiple formations that you'll see?
Well, I mean, they're going to line up in a lot of traditional formations with motion and movement and stuff like that, and they're going to line up in a lot of non-traditional formations. You'll have 3 linemen over here, 2 linemen over there, a center, a quarterback, receivers all over the place. and it's not just one play. You know, they have a lot of variations for that, which you know, you've got to be able to adjust to that quickly. Not only do they do it, but they do it very successfully. So certainly we've got to be able to handle that, be able to make the adjustments, get lined up, and then be able to execute defensively against that, and then turn around and be able to, you know, defend a more traditional style offense when they're just, you know, in a more traditional spread set.
Dave Thomas with ESPN Harrisonburg, JMU Sports Sprint Network. You talked about in the pregame show wanted to get more pressure on Steve Cluley. You did sack him 3 times.
Yep.
But were you pleased with the amount of pressure to hurry him or to rush him? Were you pleased with what your defense was able to do Saturday?
Yeah, I think given the style of passing attack they used this past weekend, which, you know, they ran the ball 44 times, so it's the most they've ran it all year. And a lot of their passing was max protection, play action stuff, which is hard to generate pressure. I think given those 2 factors, I think we did a pretty good job of generating pressure. And even when Cluley got the passes off, we were able to get a lot of significant hits on him. And I do think that probably played a factor there in the second half.
Tommy Keeler, Northern Virginia Daily. Can you just talk a little about their New Hampshire's defense, and what are some of the things that kind of stand out about them on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, at first, you know, they run basically the same scheme we do, so it's something that at least our offense is fairly familiar with. But I think the thing that they do really, really well is they are very gap sound and very disciplined. And those 2 things are impressive to me because I know how hard it is to be those 2 things. They have they have physical players. They're big up front on the D line. Their 5 techniques, you know, play very fundamental there with their technique on some of the quarterback run stuff. I think their linebackers may be their strength because I think they've got really, you know, the 2 starters, 56 and 49, are both outstanding players. But then 58, who plays a lot, I think, you know, could easily be a starter on most of the teams in this league. So I think that they have a good core right there of inside backers. And then you look at their secondary; both safeties are active, very involved in the run game. They've got the one corner, 28. Who is, I think, preseason All-American, All-Conference player last year. The other corner, the freshman, is extremely athletic. So I think you just look and, you know, they've got talent, but their talent is very physical, very hard-nosed, very disciplined, very fundamental. They play well together. They know the scheme. They're older. You know, it's just a lot of things that go into making them, you know, a team that's giving up a very low number, points per game on the year.
David Guzman, WHSV TV in Harrisonburg. Taylor Reynolds, how unique of a player is he? How has he grown in your time with him, and just how valuable is he, obviously, to the defense there?
Well, I think first, you know, Taylor's just an outstanding person, and that's, you know, and don't underestimate the value of that because, you know, being able to deal with him on a daily basis, he's always going to be a yes sir, no sir. He's always going to be a guy that tries to do what you ask him to do. And there's a lot of that goes a long way when it comes to, you know, being a great player. Certainly he's got ability, he's got size. You know, he's over 6 foot, which for a corner that's important against some of the receivers in this league. He weighs around 195 pounds, so he's not a small kid. So he can be pretty physical with those guys at the line of scrimmage. And I think all those things go into, you know, him being able to play a lot of different techniques. You know, you see us, we play some press with him. We play press bail. We'll play him in, you know, off soft man. We'll play catch with him. We'll play some hard corner with him, you know, with a cover 2 look behind him. You know, he can match up one-on-one if we want to, you know, rotate to the front side with our backside safety. So he's a guy that can handle a lot of different things, and then we'll bring him off the edge on a pressure. So, you know, I just think that he's done a good job of you know, he's a 5th-year player, 4th different defensive coordinator. And in spite of all that, he's really embraced this system, this scheme, and is playing very, very well in it. And I think, you know, the interception at the end of the game Saturday night, you know, he played his technique very well, put himself in a situation where the receiver had no chance to catch that pass. The receiver was actually forced out of bounds by Taylor, so really it was either Taylor makes the play or nobody. And so, you know, able to come down with a huge interception, but it all goes back to him just doing a good job of playing within the scheme.
New Hampshire has won a couple of games in the 4th quarter, especially in CAA play. What have you seen them do really well late in games to help them win?
I think the big thing is they do the things that teams need to do to win. You know, you look at the game last week against Elon. You know, they're down 3. They're down 10-7 in the fourth. They drive the field, kick a field goal. Elon drives all the way down to the 6-yard line, misses the field goal to take the lead, and New Hampshire turns around, drives the field again, and hits the field goal to win it. So, you know, while the other team is struggling to make plays in the clutch, you know, New Hampshire's team consistently made plays in the fourth quarter of that game to win it. You saw the same thing at Rhode Island, very close game. Then all of a sudden New Hampshire forces a couple of turnovers, converts those turnovers into points, and a close game turns into a comfortable win. You know, I just think that that's a sign of a veteran team that has a lot of self-confidence, that has won a lot of ball games and knows how to win close ball games.
Coach, on Saturday, Steve Cluley had several key runs, one for a touchdown, some missed reads there. Was that the same position missing the read, or was it different formations and different people missing, staying home with the quarterback?
2 of the 3 was the same player, and then the other one was a different player. All 3 of them are fundamental corrections that plays we've got to make, plays that I know those players can make, and certainly that was reinforced to them very firmly Sunday afternoon. And as recently as about 15 minutes ago before I left the office, one of them was walking through, and I said, you know, why do I have to explain to our vice president why you can't make the play on the zone read right there when you should? And he's gotten the point. Okay, but it's a basic play that player's got to make, and I expect him to make it this week because it's going to be a big factor in this ball game. Their quarterback is a good runner and a very dangerous runner, and they're going to run every variation of the zone read that you can think of. They're going to read the 3 technique. They're going to read the 5 technique. You know, they're going to do some stuff where it's just quarterback run stuff. So we're going to have to be very, very sound in the way we defend the quarterback this week.
Jack Fitzpatrick, The Breeze. Abdullah's having a great season. What are some of the keys to his success so far?
Well, I think that probably the biggest key is just the hard work he's put in developing himself over the last 3+ years. He is a well put together young man. Obviously, he has some God-given physical abilities, but he's developed his body. He's 205 pound running back with great speed, and certainly he's had to develop himself since he's gotten here. He does it all. He's a great runner. Everybody sees that. The things that you don't see is he's great in pass protection, which takes care of Brian Shore and allows him to be effective in what he's doing in the passing game. Khalid's a great receiver out of the backfield. He's a great blocker when he and Carden are in there together. So he's really developed himself into a quality, what I think, FCS, FBS. I mean, I think he is a mid-major quality running back, and I think we're fortunate to have him. And certainly he's also benefiting from the play of a very good offensive line in front of him. I don't want to miss the opportunity to point out that that's the reason for a lot of those rushing yardage and a lot of that room he has.
Coach, looking at Dalton Crossan, you talked about him earlier, but he has had about 50% of their carries or just a little under, and realistically, he's about 35% of their offense.
Right.
Teams knowing he's going to get the ball, they're not hiding that. How are they getting him open to make space and to do damage?
Well, one, again, just like us, I mean, they start 4 seniors on the offensive line. They've got a good line in front of them. Those guys play together really well, very physical. They do a good job of opening up holes there. I think they have a good offensive scheme. But, probably the biggest factor is the quarterback runs just as good as 27 does. So, you can't sit there and just, overplay the running back because the quarterback's going to keep it out the back door or keep it up the middle or wherever. So you got to play both, and certainly that puts you in some one-on-one situations. And he's a physical runner. I mean, he can run around you or he can run over you. So, there's a reason why he was second-team all-conference last year and that he's had such a great start to this year.
Who do you have emulating Knight in practice, the quarterback? Because obviously this is kind of the first dual threat type guy that you've seen.
Cole Johnson, who I could not be more excited about. We're doing everything we can to redshirt him, but for JMU fans, Cole Johnson's going to be a name you'll know very well one day. He's a good passer and really good feet, and does a great job with our scout team offense.
Coach, you've talked about when you go on the road, you try to keep the routine as normal as possible.
Yeah.
Now that you've had a couple of road games under your belt, how difficult is that to keep that routine in? You take a long haul flight, you go up there, and it's just a different atmosphere. So how difficult has it been?
Really, we have the same timeline we had with Maine. So, our team has had this Friday, Saturday schedule once already this season and be able to handle it successfully. The game day timeline is very similar to the Delaware morning as far as what time our kids got to get up, what time we're eating pregame meal. We're off by about an hour there, but with some of the travel and stuff, it's going to work out pretty close. So it shouldn't be anything that our kids haven't been through before and successfully navigated. And we'll obviously talk to them about it, all throughout the week. Just hey, we've done this before and all that, but I expect them to be just fine.
Coach, I asked you this question on the conference call yesterday, but for those who might not have heard it, talk about the experience of your coaching staff and then going in game, talking to your team, getting information from them, what they're seeing, and helping to make adjustments going forward.
Well, I think that's the key. The reason that I hired a lot of those guys is this is not their first year in the profession, or their second, or their third, or even their 20th. Several of them have as many years in coaching as I've been alive. So I've got some experience, but experience only helps if you're able to communicate with the kids. And really the key thing that we've been working on is when you get to the sideline, being able to talk to the kids, and for the kids to be able to give you information about what they're seeing, from their perspective, and then we're relaying what we're seeing from up top, and able to get corrections made or adjustments made, so that we can get things fixed in game. And there's lots of examples of that, throughout last Saturday's game and the games before. But I think that's something we're improving on as the season goes on. But certainly, I'm fortunate that I have some guys that do have that experience on the sideline with making those adjustments.
Is there any concern with your kicking game at all? I know Tyler Gray, he's made some field goals, he's also missed some. Is there any concern there at all?
I think Tyler's been solid. He's the one extra point that we missed was a little bit of the protection. The one Saturday, he just got he has his plant foot closed, and it caused his hips to stay closed, and he couldn't get his hips through the kick, and he's pushed it. So nobody feels worse about it than Tyler does. He's got a lot of pressure he puts on himself, but we've got confidence in him that he'll make those kicks, and because we watch him make those kicks every week in practice.
Coach, getting back to your coaching staff, Jamal Powell is heading up the offensive line, and this was an offensive line that had different blocking last year, the way the offense was run. And to me, it looks like the line very similar to the 04 National Championship team in the sense that it's very defensive. What I mean is they're very aggressive up front. What did you ask of Coach Powell? What did you ask of the offensive line to change? Because obviously it's working very well.
The biggest thing is I told him we're not going to be a finesse football team. I've never had one that I've coached that's been a finesse team. That's just not what I believe in. And I think championships are won by having teams that can run the football aggressively on anybody and can defend the run. And part of that's with the way your offensive line plays. And to Jamal's credit, and Jamal's an outstanding young coach, to Jamal's credit, he adapted what they were doing last year to more of what we wanted to do, and certainly Brian Steinsprings had a tremendous influence on that as well, because Brian has the same philosophy of offensive line play that I do, and so together Jamal and Brian have developed that group, and that group is bought in, and now all of a sudden we've turned something that I don't think was present on last year's team, and it's something that really I think is the strength of this year's team. And I think that's a credit not only to Jamal and Brian, but to those young men that are playing up front for us.
Okay, I want to acknowledge also we did have questions come in from Peter Bird and John McNamara, but I think that was addressed about the kicking situation there.
Yeah.
These are coming in on Facebook. Kevin Mead wants to know a little bit about the corner play on the receivers. Sometimes they may appear to be, maybe to the fans' liking, too far off the receivers. How do you determine how far they're going to play off the line of scrimmage and off a receiver?
Well, it depends on the call defensively. If you're watching closely on all plays, they'll notice that we press a good bit, and we play a good bit of press man, and then we'll play some zone, and then we'll play some off man. And so the thing you're trying to do is you're trying to give the quarterbacks a lot of different looks. And so our secondary is, it's built around simplicity from the kid's standpoint, but also, being able to show a lot of different things to the quarterback. As long as we know what we're playing and the quarterback doesn't, then that's to our advantage.
One other question Mike Strickler was asking, in the past game, how much of the game plan was it for Brian Shore to not pitch the ball, or actually to keep the ball in the option, at least in the first half?
Well, I think, obviously there were some quarterback run design plays there in the first half that got Brian on the perimeter. One for the I think about 17-yarder down our sideline. But a lot of that stuff is built into the offense as a run-pass option, where it may be the ball's going to Khalid, it may be Brian keeping the ball, or it may turn into a pass play. And that's dictated really based on the formation, the call offensively, and what the defense is doing to defend us. So sometimes that's, a read and a check of Brian.
Well, if you go back to the Delaware game in the first half, particularly that first drive, he was keeping it a lot because he was seeing that was open.
Yep, no doubt. But I thought, now to that point, I thought William and Mary was very conscientious of accounting for Brian defensively on Saturday.
And Coach, you're heading into the bye week after this, and obviously you're looking for the win, but what are you looking for from your team so that going into the bye week you can maximize the productivity there?
To win. That's it.
Just win, baby.
Let's talk about your defensive line a little bit, because they're the most shallow as far as depth position on your team. Those guys are playing a lot of reps, but they're starting to play with some confidence. Just talk about the young men that are up there and how hard they're playing.
Well, I think they're improving a lot. You look, Simeon had another solid game this past Saturday, recorded a big sack of Cluley. You look at Darius Carter, I'm telling you, that play he made in the red zone on Cluley, we talked a few minutes ago just about, the play that maybe we didn't make on Cluley. That one was because Darius played the technique perfectly. Slow played Cluley, and Cluley was indecisive and ended up, trying to, I don't know if he was trying to give it or pull it, but he ended up with the ball on the ground because he couldn't, make a decisive read off Darius, and then Darius able to get in there and make the fumble recovery. So certainly we're seeing guys playing better. Martez Stone, Cornell Urquhart playing harder, and that consistent play, if the more we can improve that week in, week out, the better you're going to see our defense play week in and week out. Certainly they're going to be a huge factor this Saturday up in New Hampshire.
Everybody's looking at me, which means they must be finished asking questions.
Fantastic. Right. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to the trip to New Hampshire and hopefully coming home with a win. Go Dukes.
Thank you, Coach Houston. The Dukes at New Hampshire next Saturday. Again, it is a noon kickoff. You can watch it on the American Sports Network, and you can hear it on the JMU Sprint broadcast network as well. Thank you for joining us here at O'Neill's Grill. We'll be back next Tuesday as we talk about the game against New Hampshire and what the Dukes are going to do during bye week. Thank you for joining us here, and thanks again to Tim and Monica O'Neill for their hospitality at O'Neill's Grill.